So how we price our corals here at Majestic Aquariums, when we first get the shipment in, we put the corals into this tank where we try to attract a premium price for them, and then any corals that are not sold in that week, then we move over to this section here where we will reduce the price of the corals. Then if they don't sell in this section, we will then reduce it again and put it in that section over there, which as you can see we don't have any corals in right now. So effectively our customers actually dictate the price the corals sell for, because if we do mark a piece of coral as a little bit high in price, then the very next week it goes down in price. So so we get a fairly good gauge of what people are happy to pay for the corals at the time, and if we're wrong, then next week we put them down, because our plan here at Majestic Aquariums is to get their corals established into your aquarium as soon as possible. So so the quicker we get the coral from our tanks to your stable system, I think the better it is for the animal itself. So once again, we'll get the coral in, we'll try to get what we can for the coral, then the following week it will go down in price, then the week after that it'll go down in price again. And if we do have a surplus of very cheap corals, we'll often have a sale, and we'll often call it either a feeder coral sale, where we'll mark the corals at a much cheaper price, making them actually an affordable option for people that have angelfish and butterfly fish and fish that might like to eat corals. And we also sell them as filler corals, which means that we might have a deal X amount for $100 or whatever, and that price is usually around our cost price. So we're looking just to clear them out so we can carry more of the corals that people are after. Because once again, when you do get a shipment, you may get, say, 5% of them are absolutely unbelievable. They're the ones we need to make our money out of. Then you might get sort of 50% of them are pretty good. Then you might get a percentage of them that are, let's say, not the pick. So therefore, with this price structure that we've got, we find it works quite well, because you're either buying the best coral and you're paying a little bit more for it, otherwise you can get coral at a very good value quite cheaply. The other thing just to take note of too is that the colour the coral has is very much reflected by the water quality. So if in a particular system you might have high levels of nitrate and phosphate, then the corals will never show their maximum colour. If you get the nitrate and phosphate lower, and you have lower calcium, magnesium and carbonate, you can actually coach the colour out of the coral, because the coral itself actually doesn't have a colour. So therefore the zooanthely, which the coral takes on, can actually change, and the pigment that the coral can release is totally governed by the zooanthely and the conditions that the coral is in. So you can literally take a coral home which is brown, and it can end up bright green, bright blue, or whatever the colour is. And the way you do it is you aim for a lower calcium, let's say around 400, 410, a lower KH, say around 8 DKH, a lower magnesium, about say 11 or 1200, and a very low, basically untestable nitrate and phosphate to get the colour in the corals. Then if you want to grow the corals, you need to change the conditions again. You need to raise the calcium to sort of 450, raise the magnesium to sort of 1400, raise the carbonate to about 12 DKH, and then you need to make sure that you've got traces of nitrate and phosphate. And then at that point the coral will go into a growth phase, and in the growth phase it will not be as colourful because it'll be full of zooxanthellae, which is essentially brown, so the coral might brown out, and then it will start to grow. And quite often when they're growing they'll have white tips and they'll go into their growth mode. So once again, you can take a coral home that's potentially been in our systems for several weeks, may have potentially browned out, due to the fluctuant conditions that are offered in a retail space, then you can potentially take those corals home and colour them up to be spectacular. So remembering the colour of your coral is not just the colour that it starts with, it's also a combination of the lights that you have and the water conditions that you offer. Also be very wary of shops that run their corals under pure actinic lighting. If you look at the lights and they're just blue lights, the corals will look amazing. These corals here, which all look quite plain, I could drop the white out of these lights and just have it all blue, and these corals would look fluorescently amazing, and you take them home to your aquarium and then they look terrible. So I believe that retailers should be displaying their corals under the light that they encourage people have, because that way you can buy a coral from me and if it looks green, it's green, as opposed to buying a coral from someone that displays under completely actinic lighting and you take it home and it's brown, because the lights that they have are not a true representation of the colour of the coral. Anyway, there's some things to think about. Put some comments underneath and let us know what you think. We love your feedback.